I'll make a nice rapid start. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This is a meeting of Frome Town Council. I'm Andy Jones and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Just to remind everybody, as well as people here in the room, we've got people online. For those in the room, the usual housekeeping: emergency exit in the corner with an assembly point at the far side of the car park if you can find it in the fog. Toilets are at the end of the corridor to the right, and there's an accessible toilet near the lift. I think you've all helped yourselves to cups of tea, but do feel free to get more if you need it. Tonight, Paul will clerk. We've got Laura, Sarah, Becca and Rachel all doing minutes, question board, participants and IT settings generally. The meeting will be recorded and made available on our YouTube channel. For those councillors, if any attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand, and for anybody else, please ask questions through the Q&A board. So first on the agenda is apologies for absence. Paul.
Max Wide, Mel Usher and Polly Lamb.
Okay. I've got Fiona proposing those and seconding. All those in favour? I'll let you do a quick head count.
That's unanimous, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Second up, declaration of interests. Sarah?
Yeah, I've got an interesting item. I've got an interesting item 5 on the agenda. What the cheese and grain, which I will nip out for. I'll do my little spiel and then I shall nip out.
Thank you very much.
So, Sarah, that's other disclosable.
Other disclosable interest, yes.
Okay. And Anne?
Hello, yes, I'm on. I am a director of Frome Town Community Benefit Society, so the Badgers Hill update. I'm declaring my other
just a verbal
disclose. Yes, but just to be safe.
Thank you. And Anita?
And I'm a member of the Frome
Club. You just have a microphone.
Sorry.
Just a member of the Frome Football Committee, so I'm not sure if that needs to be declared.
Okay.
And in the interest of equity, I'm also on the CBS board at the football club.
So we've got 3 for Badgers Hill and 1 for cheese and grain. Thank you. Okay, minutes of the last meeting. Oh, Fiona's got a question about the minutes of the last meeting.
Sorry, Laura. Just how you phrased the question that I asked to Police Inspector Rachel Clark about violence against women and girls. The point I was making that the cause of violence against women and girls is violent behaviour in men and boys. It's not, and the onus of a lot of the projects she was talking about was on changing the behaviour of women and girls. And I was trying to say that it's a violent behaviour of men and boys that needs to change, not women and girls. So can we sort of rephrase that?
You'll need to propose a change.
Okay. Questioned the emphasis on women and girls emphasis on changing the behaviour of women and girls in addressing violence against women and girls rather than men and boys. If that's okay.
What paragraph are we on?
It is on page 2, 3rd paragraph, or second full paragraph.
So
You can write something afterwards if that helps. Or,
we need to vote on the change and then the minutes.
okay.
This is on changing the behaviour of.
On emphasis on changing the behaviour of women and girls in addressing violence in women and girls rather than changing the behaviour of boys and men or men and boys.
So what we need to do, Andy, is obviously Fiona's proposing that change. Someone needs to second that and then vote on the change and then the minutes as a whole.
Okay.
Can we just read that back? So,
Yes.
So I think I got Fiona Barrows questioned the emphasis on changing the behaviour of women and girls rather than changing the behaviour of men and boys in addressing the root cause of violence.
I guess in addressing violence against women and girls.
In addressing violence.
We've got Fiona proposing that. I've got Anne seconding it. All those in favour? Okay, so that change is accepted to the minutes. And then can I have somebody proposing that we accept those minutes? Philip proposes, Nick seconds. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fiona. I did have one question arising from those minutes, because we talked last time about the lack of clarity on the situation with Weymouth Road parking, and I wondered if there'd been any further update from Somerset Council on that. Jane, can you take that for us?
Thank you. Yes, I have just in the nick of time received a response from Steve Deacon, who's the parking services manager at Somerset, apologising for not coming back to us sooner. The reason being he's spent a lot of time dealing with council reorganisation, in particular the parking services. So he's added, in case you are unaware, the signs were removed overnight a while ago without being requested by Somerset Council. So we did know that that had happened. This has generated some response to Somerset Council, which has been helpful. He's now drafting the traffic regulation order to formally remove the restrictions from Weymouth Road. And as soon as it is ready for advertising, he will make the Town Council aware, as it may generate some further comments to us. In the meantime, they are obliged to cease patrolling Weymouth Road due to the lack of signs. And as part of the removal of the traffic order, refunds will be arranged for residents who need them. So there's no date given for that happening, but I have replied and said that I would appreciate a call with him just to be a bit clearer about the process and to try and nail down some timescales for us. But the confirmation is that the traffic order is being put together to remove it, and currently there are no patrols on Weymouth Road.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll move on to item 2, which is questions and comments from the public. I have got a few people who I know want to speak. Charlotte, can I take yours first, please?
Yes, I had a question, but also a proposal, I suppose. So I'm here as myself, as a member of the public, but also from Frome Medical Practice. Just noting, we've had conversations at the practice around the lack of sports facilities that we have due to issues with the boilers of the Fusion swimming pool, lack of lighting at the football pitches, and we advocate for a healthy, sustainable, well community, and we feel that this is at risk. I feel that this is at risk with these services being this is not the first time that the boilers have broken, and it's a question if anyone has any more information about that, but also a proposal that at the practice we can advocate for more funding if that's what's needed, or support any actions that we can take to keep this more secure.
Thank you, Charlotte. I don't know if is Dawn.
Shane and Dawn.
Oh, Shane and Dawn both online. If either Shane or Dawn wanted to respond on that, and we've got Helen in the room because it is a Somerset Council requirement.
Hello, I'm here. Yeah, so I didn't realise that the boiler was gone at the leisure centre for the pools and stuff. So if you could, yeah, I can look into that because it's in my division, and so I can get back to whoever's the contact person. Who would you want me to contact in with this? Anyone at the council? Would you like to be my contact person?
Well, feed it through me for the time being, Dawn,
Okay.
and I'll make sure that Charlotte gets those updates. Rachel, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, just to say I had a conversation with them today just to see what was going on. The boiler is broken, as Charlotte says. They've got somebody coming out on Monday who is apparently the big fixer, whatever that means, who will be ordering the part on Monday, they hope. However, apparently it is not unheard of for the engineer to be booked in and then not to arrive on said date. So she is not prepared, can't categorically say what sort of timeline. But obviously that is only pertaining to the boiler and the swimming pool and doesn't speak to the lights.
I popped in this afternoon, and just the details of it are that the swimming pool should be heated by 2 boilers. One of them has been kaput for a very long time, and it's been running on 1 boiler. That's the one that's broken. So they've got money and they're investigating fixing one of them, but it should be 2 so that it's a comfortable environment, so that the showers work. Also, the air handling system has been broken for a very long time, which makes it also an uncomfortable environment.
Can I suggest that we leave that with Dawn to take forward?
No problem at all. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick White, I'm a regular user of the swimming pool. When Fusion got the lease from, I think it was Mendip at the time, it was sold to them for £1. They had the whole asset for a 99-year lease for £1. And that was on the understanding that there'd be major upgrade work carried out by Fusion. And one of those things was to replace the boilers to a standard that they needed to be replaced to. And there's been a constant problem ever since. And I don't know if Frome Town Council have got any power to hold Fusion's feet to the fire on this one. If not, Somerset should be doing something about it, because I guess responsibility has gone from Mendip to Somerset.
Absolutely.
But basically, I don't think they're living up to their side of the arrangement.
Yeah.
Can I just fill in some of the details on that, because it's something that lots of people have sort of contacted various different members of Frome Town Council about over the last few years, is agreed that this is sort of the latest in a long-running line of issues. I did a bit of digging on it when it came up. A person in my ward emailed. I'm not sure that it was a 99-year lease, but it was basically Fusion did a deal with then Mendip District Council for all 4 or 5 of the leisure centres in what was Mendip. I don't think it was 99 years. I think it was about a 30-year lease, and we're literally like 6 or 7 years into that. But that same point is it did include a commitment to spend, I think it's about £1 million or something on infrastructure. And it would be really good if we could figure out whether they have actually spent that. So I don't know whether we need to find out who is the contact person at Somerset Council who is now managing this. And can we do that so that we have a contact person? And then maybe we can try and work with the medical practice to bring everyone around a table.
See what Dawn can find out. I'll just take this comment from Nick and then I'll wrap.
I can answer that question. The money they spent actually went on a major upgrade of the gym there, which they saw as a revenue stream. They closed the bowls hole. It was an indoor bowling green, and they turned it into a big gym. I've got no problem with that, but that's where the lion's share of the money went, together with fixing the leak in the reception roof. There was minor upgrade to the changing rooms, but the showers were going hot and cold forever, and the boiler has been a bugbear that's been going on ever since. They've never really properly addressed that.
I just wonder whether we could ask Paul as town clerk to email on behalf of Frome Town Council, to email Somerset Council and ask whether we can have a contact person there who's managing it, and sort of maybe try and bring, with the medical practice, bring people around a table to address these issues, because it's all well and good us addressing things as they come up, but actually there is a bigger issue here.
Paul's just writing himself an action to do that now. Thank you all very much. Rachel.
And Adam Boyden says that Frederica Smith-Roberts is the executive member and he will take it up with her.
Okay.
Be part of.
So, at least we've got that conversation started. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Okay. Next one I was going to ask was Dan Jeffries. Welcome. Do you want to say a few words?
Certainly. So, hello all. My name is Dan Jeffries. I am the neighbourhood sergeant for Frome and Shepton Mallet. I know my Inspector Clark, was here at the last meeting in December and did a bit of a talk on that. Mine's going to be a bit more of a light touch. and she's going to be coming also to the next meeting in February. So you've got me in the meantime. But firstly, I think I wanted to recognise the fact that what we want to do is increase our attendance at these meetings. I fully appreciate the fact that actually we haven't really been here that often. So hopefully starting from last month, that will be rectified. I can't commit to us coming to every meeting because it depends on shifts. For example, I'm working overtime so that I can be here. So it's just dependent on the shifts. But when we can, we'll certainly try and be here. And we'll certainly also look to get you a report in terms of crime stats, etc., in advance of any meeting. What I'd also like to say is if you would particularly like our attendance at a meeting, or there's anything particularly burning issue-wise that you would like addressed, please let us know in advance. And of course, we'll do our absolute utmost to be there and to cover that topic off. A couple of things that I wanted to kind of touch on, and maybe the inspector already went through this last month, so apologies if I'm kind of going on over the same ground. But I just wanted to kind of touch on what our resources look like in terms of policing in Frome, so you have an awareness of that. So within the neighbourhood team itself, we're obviously based in Frome, so you have us in Frome. You have myself, you have 6 PCSOs, and you have 3 PCs. And my team obviously cover Frome and Shepton. Over in Shepton, I have 2 PCs and 3 PCSOs. So often they'll come over to assist, but that's what you have within Frome itself. And your response, if you like, they work out of Shepton. So they're the officers that will mostly be the ones that are coming when you call 999, for example, but they operate out of Shepton. But they're your 24/7 presence. Obviously, for neighbourhood, we're only in when we're in. But that's the policing, if you like, that you have. In terms of just want to touch on briefly as well PCSO numbers, because I know the Chief Constable came out recently on the news just to give a story, reference staffing levels and the fact that PCSO numbers have gone down from around 280 to 230. Just to kind of reassure you for Frome itself, actually we're very lucky. We have one of the highest numbers of PCSOs on the team in the force, and those reduction in numbers, no one's getting let go. That's natural attrition through retirement or potentially moving on to be a PC, etc. And we're actually doing a PCSO recruitment drive at the moment as well to make sure that we maintain those numbers that the Chief Constable has set. So just to kind of give you a bit of a picture in terms of the staffing levels for Frome, and that actually is quite healthy, if you like. Also, want to touch on, I suppose, is the focus, if you like, for us over the last month, probably since the inspector gave her talk. We've had the force-wide, but it's also a national initiative in terms of the focus on drug drive. So as a force, we ended up with, I think it was 241 arrests for drug drivers. So that was one of the focus, if you like, over the last month, December-wise. When we're looking at Frome itself and the priorities, which you can also see on our website, but shoplifting is one of them, most definitely. And shout out to Nick there, who was very good in arranging a meeting earlier today here with ourselves and some of the local shopkeepers just to discuss their concerns, again, explain what the policing response would be, how to report it, and again, to encourage reporting, and that's not just for shoplifting, but also what I would ask to be message to be passed on regarding any crime or any social behaviour at all, is just that encourage the reporting of it, because that's some of the you will often have, oh, we've got this going on reported to us, and then we'll look and we'll go, but we've had no reports on it. So as far as we're aware, there's no issue. So unless we get those reports, we won't know about it. And furthermore, the more reports we get, the more it becomes flagged up as an issue, and the more that resources will be devoted to it. One of the priorities we also had was tackling antisocial behaviour at Stonebridge. That was mostly down to youths. It was a bit of a TikTok craze that happened in terms of them going and knocking and kicking on people's doors. So just to update on that, we were able to identify many of the youths involved whilst working in partnership with the college, and they have been dealt with via out-of-court resolutions and education. And finally, just one last thing to touch on, was just we're aware that there has been some issues on Caxton Road around antisocial behaviour, but we're not getting the level of reports that we need. So if there are incidents going on, then we need to know about it. But thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Anybody got any quick questions for Dan? So, can you just pass the microphone over?
Hello, yeah. I'd just like to ask the question, do we think that we have enough police for a town of 28,000 people?
That's a good question. As a police officer, I'll always kind of bias and say no. I'll always want more police officers. I think there is a national issue in terms of resourcing, which is most definitely felt within Avon and Somerset itself. Obviously, we have this competing issue of rising demand, and demand is always ever going to go up. It's not going down. Whereas the staffing levels are not rising at that same rate. So I think there is an argument to be had that we would like more of a policing presence in Frome, particularly, I would say, around the response. Obviously, colleagues, they're suffering as well, but they currently work out of Shepton as opposed to Frome. So for a town this size, yes, I think there's an argument to be made that we would like more police there.
Believe we've got the PCC coming to next month's meeting, so if you're able to bring that question to that meeting, that's probably more appropriate.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Nick?
Sorry, just one question to ask, because obviously the policing in Frome, I don't think is adequate for the town of this size. I understand the budget limitations and everything else, but in Frome there's a lot of crime below the level, below the surface. They're not the antisocial things that are obvious to everybody that they see, but there's a lot of crime hidden in plain view in Frome, and I don't think the police have got the resources to deal with it, and I don't think you are dealing with it. I don't know, is there any plans within Avon and Somerset to combat some of those crimes that are hidden in plain view, in Frome in particular? Well, things like, people working at the car wash up at behind Frome Tuning Gauge, their background, I think there's a case of enforced working there. Their conditions are far from adequate. They're outside of any employment law that would exist for anybody else that actually lived in this town. The same can be true for nail bars, also all sorts of issues like that, where exploitation is going on in the town, as I say, hidden in plain view, and it's something that's been going on for some considerable time.
I think probably the first comment I'd make is just going back to what I said previously around the encouragement of reporting, because obviously if it's hidden about and we're not getting those reports in, then we won't know about it. So that's first and foremost is, and I can understand that the public might be reticent in doing so, and that links back to trust and confidence. They might think, okay, what's the point? And so that's something that we've got to work on, obviously, to show that when they do make reports, that we act on them. But ultimately, unfortunately, we police by consent in this country, and that requires the cooperation of the community. And without their support, without their reports, we are very much going to struggle. In terms of adequate policing, again, I think it was a good point by Andy there that the PCC will be coming down, and perhaps those questions are better levelled at their level.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, we'll close this discussion at this point and move on. But thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you.
Welcome. Jill, I know you've got some questions.
I've just got a few. Here we go. Right, just a few items pertaining to the Foundry Barton area, as you would expect. Now, I just want to mention the large flight of steps. Mark knows them well. They are in a rather dangerous situation. We are tempted to clean them, but we are not going to, because my neighbour Rosie and I, we're too old to be doing that. And we have phoned Somerset Highways, and they said they would come and tidy them up. But I'm not holding my breath on that. I'm sure they've got higher priorities. And I don't know whether the town council would be agreed to come and keep those steps clear. They are quite a major passageway down from our site into the car park. Also, the area at the bottom of the steps, which is owned by Greenbelt of Glasgow, they have kept to their contract and they completed tidying up in September, which was their agreement. And I will be in touch with them because they need to start again in April. Also, I would like to thank and have it minuted to Rob Holden regarding the newness and the repair to the street light in that open space. It is now on and working, and all the residents where we are truly grateful. Going on to Chateau Gontier Walk, I believe there's been a damaged seat there, and I noticed today it's been removed. The gardening is there was some sort of starting to the gardening and repair because that looks in a very shabby state. The Chateau Gontier engraved stone is sprayed with blue paint, and that needs to be rectified. Also, I don't know if this is directed to Peter Wheelhouse, but I'm interested in the fact that the TSB Bank will be closing on the 27th of March. Has a bank hub been prepared and ready for up and running in Frome?
Thanks, Joe. Actually, if we
I'll
can
take
take that question about the banking hub, we have got Dr. Sam Evans here from Prosper Frome, who's probably the best place to answer where we're up to on that.
We haven't had any news about the temporary or the permanent site. I emailed them this week to find out if there was any updates. They were looking at a temporary, trying to get it in really quickly, and suggested a number of different potential places, including the library. We don't know what they've ended up with. And they're also looking at permanent sites on some of the disused buildings in Frome. And they think that that will probably take up until about October this year to actually get a permanent site in. So at the moment, there's no updated information on that.
I think I'm correct in saying, though, that the TSB is forbidden from closing until there is an interim
Yes,
policy.
so there will be a temporary one before TSB closes, we understand, but we just haven't been told any more information about exactly when and where.
You're still in the knowledge that the TSB closes on the 27th of March, but there's no arrangement then for...
Well, they are working on it. They're doing it behind the scenes. We had a meeting with them in October when they were working on it then. They just haven't informed us as to any progress.
Well, I think it's quite important where we need to get our money out of a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nationwide have got one inside, but that's no good at weekends and after 4:30.
Yeah, they have a legal obligation to do it, so they will. And I'm sure what will happen is they'll certainly announce it, and it will be in place the week after, because they're just not actually giving us an awful lot of information about progress on it.
Oh, well, I think they're being rather slow because March is only 2 months away.
I know, I'm sure they are, because they have been working on it since October.
And you'll get agitated residents of Frome if there's nothing in place.
We're watching it, don't you worry.
Sorry, Rachel, did you have...
Just to add to that, through the back channels, we've definitely heard it's coming into the library and everything's been being moved around. I'm not on mute, it's just not working very well. Oh, there we go. We've definitely heard it's coming into the library, and they've started, as the library service have started accommodating it.
So some preparation seems to be underway.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's good
I
to
would
know
say
anyway.
it is underway.
Thank you. Were there any other questions before I move on to Lenka? Oh, I think Rob had his hand up on the message board. Okay. Okay, so we move over to Lenka. Just switch that on.
After this one.
So,
Hi everyone. If you don't know me, I think most of you know me, but I'm Lenka. I'm a senior coordinator at Fair Frome, And with me, I have Beverly Goddard, who's a trustee on the trustees of Frome. And we've been asked to come here to give a quick update of last year's figures. Firstly, we want to say thank you for all the continued support of Frome Town Council year on year of Frome and our essential services. Sorry, we failed the IT test. So food bank last year, we gave out 488 individual food parcels, 753 couple/family food parcels, 5,064 vouchers for local food shops. Those were for butchers, fresh food, basically butchers, bakery and fresh fruit and veg. We launched a new breakfast club in June last year in response to need. This runs on a Monday morning at the cricket club, and that's aimed at Frome College and Selwood students where breakfast clubs don't currently exist. We're giving out approximately 70 bags a week. It's no questions asked, it's grab and go bags. Last year we developed our community garden up at Frome. As you can see, the volunteers, we grew lots of fresh fruit and veg, and families were able to go out there and use the space as well. Our Food at 5, which runs 3 days a week across the town, 3 venues. We serve 5,278 hot meals across the year. Our holiday lunches programme, which runs in partnership with Purple Elephant, who provide activities. We serve the hot lunch at the end. Across 51 sessions, we serve 1,787 free hot meals. Our community pantry, which runs here in the Elliott building on a Tuesday, and in 2024 we supported 204 households, 126 were families and 78 individuals, and we currently have 60 members. And the members are for 6 months. So in terms of other programmes, our furniture bank supported 142 households, and we saved 7.4 tonnes from landfill. Baby Basics Bank supported 25 families. We ran Sunday lunches once a month for families. Our assistance scheme supported 95 families and individuals. That's items like school uniform, carpets. Christmas, we also supplied 150 extra bags of Christmas food alongside food parcels, and 273 wrapped personalised presents were given out. We also offer homeless support, so we're doing at the moment lots of washing, and people come for showers. Usually 3 times a week we have people coming for showers. Working partnership, obviously we run a drop-in we have a GP inclusion health service drop-in once a month. We have Somerset Council housing advice drop-in sessions. We have Sisters Advice every Friday now, who are really successful in meeting face-to-face with a lot of our food bank users. We work consistently with Purple Elephant, who also support a lot of our services by providing support workers. We have free medical practice, a digital drop-in as well, and we work with loads of people basically across the town, obviously including Nikki Cox and her team, and I'll be coming up tomorrow again, talking to the team, and just because now Frome Town Council do refer to us, so it's just touching base and making sure referrals are being done efficiently, and we're working really well together. And finance highlights. So in terms of what we've spent, just a few highlights there. £20,000 buying food for the food bank. So last year was our hardest year for donations. So in terms of getting food donations in, we had to spend more. £9,000 spent on butchers vouchers, £2,000 spent on bakery vouchers, £5,000 on fruit and veg, £40,000 we spent for our Food at 5 community meals, £15,000 for our community pantry. And we are spending our reserves, so those are going down. And I hope that was as quick as it was told to be. But do you have any questions? Obviously, that was a really quick. Do you have any questions? But also just to say that, I can send round a really detailed PowerPoint for more information. Anyone is welcome to visit any time, because that is just really a snapshot there. It doesn't really tell you about everything that we do. Does anyone have any questions at all?
I think stunned silence.
Really?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Lenka. So unless anybody has any final questions, I think we can move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is a recommendation to approve the council plan. I'll hand over to Fiona for that.
Sorry, I think.
Oh, sorry, we've got one more question to take. Helen.
It was just a quick further update on what Dawn has written, an excellent piece here.
Yeah.
It was just about, she's mentioned the call for sites. We, as councillors, had a briefing last week about other engagements that the officers are intending, and you might have had an invitation already. I know the LCN has had an invitation, and some of the people, key parish councillors, to come along, and they're going to be doing a sort of like, looking really a sort of visioning. It's an informal, it's not part of the statutory consultation, it's something they're doing on top of the statutory consultation. It's actually quite an exciting phase. So it's actually looking at how we want Somerset, what we want our areas to look like in the future. And they're going to be dividing that into certain themes like decent homes for all, culture, community and play, how we move around, education, etc., but also green spaces, biodiversity. And so it's like our chance to put forward how we envisage this area being in 20 years' time. And that's going to then go into looking at, starting to look at policies. So it's before we get to the stage of developing individual policies, but looking at our overall direction of travel and our objectives, how we want it to look in 20 years' time. So that's just something to look forward to and look out for, to get involved in. And the other thing was about yesterday, I believe there was a Constitution and Governance Committee meeting where there had been a working party, and Martin Dimmery had been on that party and come up with some ideas about what the new divisions would look like in Frome and across the whole of Somerset. It was a difficult task because they have to work with the existing polling districts, which are a certain sort of number each, and they have to sort of add them all together so that each individual new division had something like 4,900 electorate in it or thereabouts. And so the working group had come up with a recommendation that the whole exercise had been concertinaed into a very short space of time because of the general election being called last year. So it meant that they had less time to do it than they would normally have had. And when it went to when the recommendations from that working group went to the Constitution and Governance meeting yesterday, a lot of councillors, particularly in rural areas, complained that what they'd come up with was not good enough. And overall, that recommendation from the council's own working group was rejected. So it means that it's now a free-for-all. It's going to go back to the Boundary Commission themselves to look at all these sort of jigsaw pieces and put together what the new divisions will look like. If you, as an individual person or as a town council, want to contribute your ideas about what those new divisions should look like, you still can do so up to the 20th of January. And apparently the Boundary Commission will look at everybody's input with equal weight. So individual ward members or members of the public will get equal say. And then lastly, just 2 more consultations. One of them closes today. So if you have any energy after this meeting, there is a budget consultation. I've only just started it myself, and after this meeting, I'm going to go back and finish it. I hope it's still open till midnight. And it's about asking priorities for what Somerset Council should spend its limited money on. And it asks you to put yourself in the shoes of a councillor and asks you to prioritise what you would cut if you had to cut something as well. So this is your chance as a member of public to put your views forward, and just a sort of last call really for that one. I think that's it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Helen. I assume all that information and links and things are on the Somerset Council website, are they?
The webcast for the Constitution and Governance meeting is not up yet because I tried to look at that and it's not up yet, and neither are the minutes because it was only yesterday. Yeah, and actually the briefing meeting, no, that won't be available to the public. But the community engagement plan, it may be published.
I think Dawn's included links in her report, so we can follow up those. Thank you. Okay, over to you then, Fiona.
There we go. Is that working? Ooh, hold on. Okay, here we go. So I'm essentially so first I'm Fiona Bowers, I'm a town councillor, and I have led on the development of our new strategy, or our new plan. First time I said the wrong word. Our new council plan. But I will say that it has very much been a collaborative effort on all councillors and also staff. I facilitated a meeting with as many councillors as we could get in a room. And I will say that I'm also a bit of a magpie when it comes to stuff like this. So lots of this started life in another document at some point. I'm sort of the first of the headliners this evening, and it gets basically more detailed as we go down. So I'm doing very much a sort of overall top high level overview of things. I will say I'm going to give up on the screen will be an abbreviated version of the plan, but I would really encourage you to read it. Rachel and I tried really hard to make it as simple, clear and as accessible as possible. It is under 10 slides and it looks beautiful, thanks to Miles, who did an amazing job on the design. So the first question is basically, what is a town plan, council plan? It basically outlines our approach as a council. So it's, who we are, what we do, how we do it and why we do it, hopefully. And it is purposefully very high level. With this one, we have tried to balance sort of the broader, longer term aims we have as a council with our shorter term priorities for this year particularly. And one of the themes I will talk quite a bit about tonight is balance. I think that there's lots of things that this plan, but also I think as a council are trying to balance at the moment. There's sort of different conversations we have as councillors and certain tensions. So that's sort of a bit of a theme of everything. So, there we go. So the strapline, working together towards a town that works for all, is the same that appears on our devolution prospectus. I think it comes from Max, so thank you very much to him. And it speaks to one of the first sort of balances I think we always struggle when we have to write something like this, is how we talk about Frome. And I actually was thinking of Somerset Council's Planning East committee meeting just before Christmas on Selwargarn Village, because there's a real debate among Somerset councillors there as to how they talk about Frome. It's like, is it affluent, is it down at the hill, etc. And it's something we try really hard to balance, I think, is that we're all really proud of Frome. I know I am. I love it when people come visit and we show people around. And as a community, we have achieved so much in the last 10, 15 years. The Cheese and Grain is a world-class, world-class recording studio. There's so much going for us. But I think we also recognise that there are many people that feel really left behind by the progress that we have made as a town in the last 10 to 15 years. There are many people that really struggle with their mental and physical health because of cost of living, housing crisis, etc. So it's really about recognising the potential that we have as a town, but we need to make sure that what we're doing is really about bringing everyone together and making sure that no one gets left behind. So it says here that our purpose is simple. We're not like Somerset Council. We don't provide a lot of the sort of the traditional council services, like waste collection, etc. We exist basically to make Frome a better place for everyone that lives and works here. And the golden thread that runs through our work is building Frome's economic, social, and environmental resilience so that we can weather the wider challenges. On to next slide, which is how we work. And this slide sort of touches a bit on here, sort of, without that sort of traditional power, statutory power, we have to rely on creativity and collaboration and community energy in order to get things done, which we do. And there are a couple of other balances there, which is around ambition. I think we're all very ambitious for Frome and for us as a town council, but I think we also recognise that we also have to look at what we can, realistically achieve as a town council, and that has to come into where we're putting our energy and our effort. And it's a conversation we have quite a lot as a group of councillors, I think. Do we focus on the sort of the tactical things that are tangible, or do we try and work more strategically? Some of the longer, we do some more longer term stuff that maybe doesn't have as much immediate outcomes, but is really valuable. But we also try and balance that with more tangible, direct things that we can do. And that comes back to one of our aims, which is to be bold and effective, which I'll get to. And the other balance there is remaining adaptable and nimble as we grow. And I think that is possibly a particular challenge for us at the moment, we have grown a lot, we've taken on a lot of responsibilities, but we sort of have always prided ourselves and have always strived to be responsive to things that come up and nimble and adaptable. So how do we do that going forward as we do grow is, I think, a particular challenge for us. And what does good governance and decision making look like in that as well? So that's a list of we work in many ways. Hopefully you will recognise all of that. Hopefully that sort of makes it clear. So I'm just going to run through the 5 broad aims, and I'm going to try and keep, I'm aware of time tonight, try and keep again very high level. What was interesting is as part of doing this, I looked back at basically all the town plans since 2011, all remarkably similar is what I came up with. So I was very keen that we didn't reinvent the wheel. These aims, 4 of them are in our devolution prospectus as well, so that's sort of reflected there. And the first one is grow community well-being. I think sort of particularly as national politics drives us all further apart, it's more important than ever to find ways to come together as a community, to support each other, hyperlocal community, and foster a sense of belonging. Also looking at supporting community initiatives and improving access to services and making sure that everyone has the support that they need. Our previous strategy in this area really focused on the cost of living, which speaks to what Lenka has just sort of said around fair Frome. And this time around, our priority here is around early help provision. We're recognising that with Somerset Council's financial difficulties, there will be a number of services, essential services that will be cut, and they will affect the most vulnerable in our community. And while we're not really in a position to step in and do some of those services directly, we can try and support the sort of community buffer that exists above those emergency services of sort of community organisations that provide that early help and prevent people from getting to that moment of crisis. And so we're really keen to do everything that we can there. Aim 2 is supporting a thriving town and helping support a vibrant local economy, going back to that resilience piece again of doing what we can to build the resilience of our economy. We identified the town centre as a particular priority in the last strategy and have taken steps. We've hired Mike, the town centre ranger, amazing planters at the top of Catherine Hill, among other things. There's a new Discover Frome website coming soon, and as you've just heard, in response to local banking challenges, we've been working with Partner Frome to establish a banking hub. So sort of the main priority here is really focusing on doing what we can to make the town centre cleaner, more attractive, safer and more welcoming for everyone, recognising that it's an important gateway into the town for people arriving, and that we need to do what we can to encourage people into the town in order to support our local businesses. And there is also a sort of a broader bit of work here around all of us, businesses and the council, taking more ownership of our town's economic development, cultural offer and tourism. I'm speeding through these, hopefully that's okay. So next one is cultivating environmental sustainability. Climate change is obviously a massive global challenge. You only have to look at the news the last week to see the impacts that's been had all over the world, particularly in LA. But as actually LA has shown, it has local impacts, and there are also certain local solutions. And this aim also includes our open spaces, which are one of the things I think Frome Town Council is most well known for, and which our rangers and environment team do an incredible job of managing and developing. In the last year, we've done a lot. I think there's been a sort of a real increase in the diversity of our open spaces. I think we've been looking at, we've obviously taken on Broadway Community Garden, the wetlands area. Hopefully there's a community orchard in the works. And the key priority for this coming year is that there are potentially 57 open spaces from Somerset Council that will be coming to us, and they will obviously need a lot of work in terms of making sure that they are sort of stabilised and safe, etc., and then working with the local communities in order to develop them so that they meet local community needs. There's also idea of walking and cycling corridors to tie in with our LC Whip and wildlife routes. And then also here is the climate action plan. So us convening, hopefully sort of the whole community, including businesses, organisations, public sector people, to sort of look at what we can do as a community to address climate change, both in terms of mitigation and adaptation as well, and hopefully creating, rather than just sort of a stage sort of PDF, a sort of a dynamic working document that can kind of continue to evolve as we do. Aim 4 is improve assets in infrastructure. We have always, or particularly, we really do advocate for Frome in this area, and we really want to make sure that as we grow, Frome has the assets and the infrastructure that it needs in order to meet residents' and businesses' needs. And we're also really keen to address the housing crisis as well, however we can. And the priority is really around money, actually. So looking at funding, we're hoping to increase the amount of funding that we're able to bring into Frome. We're looking at potentially a Frome fund, which might be able to attract larger funding streams and would also give us more say over where that money could go, so that we're able to make sure it really gets to where it needs to go. More investment in our town centre. And also really trying to increase our voice in the decisions that's made about funding decisions in Frome through sort of Section 106s, etc., and making sure that we're getting a real say in that. So the one that isn't in the devolution is Aim 5, and its last one, and that is to be a bold and effective council. And so this is internal, obviously, which is maybe something that hasn't always appeared in previous strategies. But I think we have all recognised as a group of councillors that we've grown a lot in the last few years. But we want to keep pushing and challenging ourselves to be innovative and to keep always looking at what we're doing and whether it's the most effective we can be. The focus here is, in light of this, is a review of our processes, particularly around decision making, and also a review of our staff structure to make sure that it is aligned with our long-term aims, but also gives us flexibility to pivot and adjust as new needs arise. And we're also really keen to increase the understanding in the town of what we do and our role as Frome Town Council, and increase participation in our decision making, including a new civic engagement platform, which we'll be investing in, which I'm very excited about. And so the final thing on that note is to really encourage everyone in the town to get involved as much as they can. I said it on the All About Frome radio show that Steve and I did yesterday, that even before sort of the financial difficulties with Somerset Council, the council has moved down to Taunton, which is quite far away. And I think that it increases the need, I think, to have a local organisation like us here in Frome to really advocate for Frome's needs, to use the fact that we really understand this town and are part of this town ourselves, to really make sure that we're doing what we can for Frome. So please do come along to meetings as much as you can. Please do read the town plan and share your thoughts and ideas with us and get involved. Whew. Okay.
Thank you very much, Fiona.
As quick as I could do it. Are there any questions?
I've got Nick first.
Hear me? Is this on? Yeah. There. Reading a few things. I mean, the town centre, improving the look of the town centre, I agree. And, we've had a limited success, I'd say, in improving the town centre, and some of it's outside of our control, I know that. But the recent Westway Centre's had a bit of a facelift. Some people have criticised it as a bit Tobermory, but I actually think it's enhanced the place. I think it's uplifted the town enormously. But what it has done is amplified the ugliest carbuncle and you all know what I'm going to say. It's the Boots building, the rear of the Boots building, opposite SK Fruits. It is the most ugly, appalling building. How it ever got planning permission in the first place, I have no idea. And I just wondered if pressure could be put on the landlord to do something about it, even just cladding it with a timber exterior or something, just to get rid of that ugly facade. And what makes it even worse now is the parking of all the big waste bins alongside it there. I don't know where they used to go, but they weren't there. And now, particularly on a Sunday morning, you walk down there, it's overflowing with rubbish, and it looks terrible. It looks absolutely appalling. And if you want to say, the town centre is the gateway to this town, surely as a council, we've got to put pressure on the land landlord and with those bins. I mean, these are easy wins to a degree, and I feel we need to do more of that.
Can I just come back on that? So first of all, can I just ask Peter, who has all the contacts with the local businesses, to contact if he has the? Do you know the person who owned the landlord of Boots Building?
We can certainly pick that up, and I mean, in a way, this will be picked up when we get to the work programme element of tonight's presentations. But certainly, looking at how the waste storage and collection can be improved in the town centre is a priority in the proposed work programme. So, assuming that is approved tonight,
There is budget allocated to exploring what we can do.
yeah, we will certainly be pursuing that. But on the issue of the state of the Boots building, we'll find a way of picking that up with Boots and to try and get an improvement.
I've already written to Boots personally about it and just got the standard brush off. It's the landlord's responsibility and blah, blah, blah. But it needs sorting out. And there's other things we let people get away with in this town. And I phoned Jane about it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to speak. But I was down in the town centre when they replaced the night safe in the HSBC wall. And the job they did of that, quite frankly, is appalling. They've put stone in that doesn't match at all the stone that's been put there. It looks totally out of place. And every time I see it, my blood boils because they've made such an appalling job of it. And do we have not any comeback on these people? How were they allowed to do it? Is it a listed building? I don't know. That's a shame. Because, you know, the developers that have bought that have just put, it's not even a repair, it's a cavalier, it's a shambles. And I think, you know, again, as a town council, if we can put pressure on these people just to do the job properly, just do the job properly. And I even had an argument with the guy that was doing the work at the time. It's just appalling. But God almighty, I haven't been here for so long. I'm getting it all off my chest. Yeah, so bear with me. Look, the other thing as well, the 57 open spaces that we're going to take on from Somerset County Council. Look, great, brilliant, and I'm all for everything that we've bought and we've managed to get back and got in our own control. But the assets that Somerset are getting rid of us, they're just pushing the liabilities towards us with none of the ability to fund it. They're hanging on to the car park revenues, they're hanging on to the market charter revenues, which you could argue should have nothing to do.
Not necessarily.
No, that's coming to us, is it?
No, we're not. It's to be decided.
It's under discussion. Is that going to be part of the deal for taking on these liabilities from Somerset County Council? Well, I think we shouldn't take them on unless we've got some financial commitment from them. Otherwise, you're going to have to keep putting up the precept every year.
So can I just address a broader point there? So I think, so first of all, Somerset Council offered us 650 bits of land in Frome, including loads of bits of tarmac and silly little, 1 metre by 1 metre. I mean, it took Mark and Rob just to do the green spaces, a lot of time just to work out where they all are. We have our approach to devolution, to answer your sort of broader question, is that we have, rather than just sort of react to Somerset Council's financial difficulties, we have tried to be proactive. And so the devolution perspective outlines with a lot of thought. We've basically spent 2 years discussing this as a council, and we've really looked at where we can add value and either sort of play to our strengths as a council, so we know that we're really good at open spaces, and or sort of try and reimagine things and do something new with them. So those 57 we have handpicked as sites that we know we can transform and do something really exciting. And I think that we do agree, but we do also recognise that Somerset Council is in severe financial difficulties, and this is a once in a generation opportunity for us. And we are doing a sort of a cohesive deal, recognising that hopefully some bits might be more beneficial to one party or the other, but overall we're hoping that it's a really good deal for everyone. Is what we're aiming for.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've been through it with a fine tooth comb, and I've got no objection to us taking on more of our assets back. I was annoyed when we ceded them for £1 in 1974 to Mendip District Council, and we've been treated shabbily ever since, I believe. But the thing is, unless we get some sort of revenue stream, the cost and the financial liabilities will shift away from Somerset to us. And I mean, I remember the very first precept that we set in 2010, 2011, a band D, when we debated hard about raising it just 10% at the time then, which seemed like a hell of a lot. For that year, a Band D was £88.92. A Band D this year is 295. I mean, that's a massive increase. And if we taking on more responsibility without any funding, that's just going to go higher. I don't see any other way around that.
We'll get onto the budget, but I will say again is that Peter and the team on the devolution will be working out business cases for all the sort of the assets that we know might, that where there is a liability, and looking at all the different ways in which it can be run. And we are really, really aware of this, but we're also looking at other forms of funding. That's partly motivated the drive to try and bring more funding into the town, so that we're not just relying on the precept. And there are also revenue generating opportunities with some of the assets, and that's what the business cases are looking at. So we are, we'll get onto the budget. We have, as a council, tried really hard to keep it down as much as possible.
I am very conscious as to time.
Okay, can I just ask, when will we get to see the 57 pieces of land that we have been offered?
Hopefully be coming to council in, I want to say next month, but I think next month or March is yeah. Okay.
Will the council be using social media to publicise that? Yeah, good. Okay, thank you.
Well, I know I've got Helen, but I've got a gentleman at the back there was waiting to...
Sorry, Nicky's answered most of my questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
I will say about the bins, the bins used to be in the Westway goods inward, but somebody built a building in the post office yard and also took out the bin storage in Westway. So that's why they're around there now.
Okay, thank you. Helen?
Yeah, just going back to this as a high-level document, you may be doing this already and Jane may already be onto it, but this is exactly the sort of thing, the vision that you have in here, that needs to feed into the local plan, the local spatial plan, so that we see these ideas actually manifested on the ground. And so this is excellent. The timing of this is excellent. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I know councillors have had good time to study this over its evolving creation. Were there any more questions, or shall we move to the recommendation? Okay.
Can I just ask, where approving this sits with approving the budget? Are those things linked?
It's separate.
Okay.
Just this document that we're approving.
Okay.
Budget comes later.
Thank you.
Okay. So can I ask somebody to propose that we approve the FTC council plan? Gosh, I think I saw Steve as proposer. I'll take Ben as seconder. I think that's unanimous.
It is.
Yeah.
Steve
Just
proposed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Fiona, for taking us quickly through that. So the next item is the big piece about approving the work programme, management chart, budget and precept demand. Steve, I think you were going to open on this one.
Which button do I press?
The one on the left. No, the other way. The one on the right.
Right, I'm going to run through my bit very quickly because Fiona's actually touched on quite a lot of it. So look, we know Frome is a great place to live, but we know there is a cost of living crisis. We know there's a lot of people out there who are struggling, and so as a council, we need to help those people and make sure that whatever we do tries to help their standard of living and their lives at the end of the day. There is a cost of living crisis and there's a housing crisis. It's very well documented. We've declared a housing crisis. Everything we do on the planning side tries to push that forward. There's an awful lot going on that side. And the same with the cost of living crisis. You know, we talk to Lenker and Fair Frome a lot, and we do our very best to support them as much as we can. We also know there's pressures on incomes from the younger and older generations in the town, as well as everyone at the end of the day. And also local businesses. We know local businesses are struggling, and we do our very best to try and support the local businesses wherever we can, you know, in the town centre and in the various industrial estates. Coupled with that, you know, we know from COVID as well that the pressure on mental health and physical health is probably the biggest it's ever been. We must and we keep supporting the community groups, because without those community groups it would be multiples worse here than it really is. The community groups need our support, they need the town support, and that's something that, again, we try and do. The backdrop of all of this, it's well documented, Somerset's financial position, the devolution. I won't go into all that. You know, I hear what Nick said about the devolution. We've worked incredibly hard over the last probably year to understand what we can absorb from Somerset without it being a massive financial hit, without us taking on liabilities, future now and for the future. We don't want to take on things that are going to cost us money going forward. But also protecting the services, protecting things in the town like, you know, the toilets and the open spaces, and improving the town centre where we know that that work won't be done going forward. So that's another huge sort of part of what we're trying to do. And wrapping all that around, you know, we do have a climate and ecological crisis that's only going to get worse based on, you know, noises coming out today. So, I've done two. I knew I'd back. So we've just agreed our vision, as Fiona said, our vision: a town sustainable, inclusive, prosperous, with a community that is resilient and happy and able to shape its future. Our work programme for the year ahead reflects this. It reflects our vision, our aims, and our priorities. It's not perfect. These things never are. It's always a compromise at the end of the day. We always have a balance between raising the precepts, keeping services going. But we'd like to think that it's well planned, it's costed, it's robust, and it's ambitious work programme. I think it has sufficient clarity about what we're doing, how much it will cost, and when we will do it. As I say, it's never easy, and we've had many debates, and a lot of hard work has gone into doing this. Personally, I'd like to thank Paul, Peter, Sarah, and Fiona for the work that they've put in organising meetings and whatever, but also lead staff and lead councillors, because we got those lead councillors and lead staff to engage on all the individual work programmes to try and keep this these numbers as tight as we possibly could for the forthcoming year. Is that my bit? No. But, there's a big but. It will mean an increase in Frome's precept, 6.6% for households in Bandy. That works out at 35 pence a week. I think it strikes the right balance between making Frome a better place to live and work and how much that costs. There are 17 councillors, and I'm sure they've all got their individual views, and I'm sure we'll hear about that in the next hour or so. But I want to pass on to Paul now, who's going to go through the details of it, I think.
Thank you, Steve.
That's me. You'll be delighted to know that I'm not going to go through every line on every page of this because the font's too small to read for me. So what I thought I'd do is just bring out some highlights and talk more about some of the things that we've been really struggling with to try and find a way forward. Which way is it, Steve? That's the right one. It's the right one, right. Yeah, so I think it goes without saying that this work programme, it's the old thing about work programme and council plans and every kind of strategy is that it's out of date tomorrow. So I just wanted to kind of confirm that it's not set in stone. Situations change. We're dependent on quote, successful negotiations with Somerset Council about devolution, for example. Other opportunities challenges, disasters, crises may come up that we might have to react to. And it's really important that you all know, the community as a whole, that if we need to, we can flex. We want to make sure, as Fiona said towards the end of her thing, and this is from an organisational point of view, we want to make sure that we're being as good as we possibly can be. So we're going to have a peer review, which is a group of experts from local government association come down and have a good look at the way that councillors and staff operate, our policies and procedures, and come with their expertise about what other people are doing and benchmarking what we do. So that we hope to do that in the next few months. I've had today confirmation, quote, there doesn't seem to be a problem with doing this, so that sounds quite good to me. I mean, sort of within that, then we will want to have a look at the governance and making sure we're doing everything properly. And again, same thing, really. We want to make sure we're being efficient and ensure that our council plan and our work programme, our staff structure fits that, and making sure that we're making best use of our resources accordingly. Just very quickly, as sort of to echo what Steve was saying, really, this hasn't just come out of the blue. We've done a lot of community engagement, a lot of data collection, and within the expert base of our stakeholders and our councillors and staff, we know a lot of what we want to do. We know a lot about what we want to continue to do. So I think that's really important to sort of say we've gone through quite a rigorous process, much more rigorous this year than we have done in previous years. And I think it's a much better document as a result. There are some issues in here that we're proposing that councillors agree in principle without knowing the detail tonight. That doesn't mean to say, don't worry, Paul, we'll just get on with that and we won't tell you anything about it. It's more a case of making sure that we've got a budget and a high level. Yes, we're going to have a look at this. For example, the devolution deal. As I said, we don't know the detail of the negotiations we're having, if you like, the outcome of the negotiations we're having with Somerset Council at the moment. But we've had to sort of allocate a budget, and we've allocated a strategic document in the devolution prospectus, and that will form the basis of the discussions we have, and then the precise, so those 57 open spaces we were talking about earlier, they're not just going to be acquired quietly, they will come to council, and council will consider, actually, this is on offer now, do we want to take this? So we need to set a budget and a kind of a strategy to enable us to make those more detailed discussions later on. The other one is the Welcome Hub for Displaced People. We now know that Somerset Council, just in the last couple of days, have a £4 million budget for supporting displaced people in Somerset. We don't know yet until the end of the month whether we need to underwrite that because we're going to get the money from Somerset to carry on with the Welcome Hub. But there's an element in there that the council will, if it agrees to allocate a budget to it, to underwrite it. A later decision will say, okay, so now we know we're not going to get the money. Do we want to carry on doing it? By allocating a budget and enable you to make that decision. Similarly, and this came directly from last year, some councillors felt very uncomfortable, sort of, well, in page 17, line 42, you agreed to have a new member of staff. Quite reasonably, what I've been asked to do is to bring that much more into the limelight. And so, again, the budget is allocated for proposed new members of staff, but the Oversight Committee will consider a business case for each post and decide whether it wants to go forward with that. Through the year as well, there are going to be lots of decisions where I have to make a decision about whether that's something I have delegated authority for or whether it needs to come to a committee or council. And I'm just asking you to trust me to try and make the right decisions on that. I can't tell you what they all be because who knows the future. But I'll do my best to ensure that the decisions are made by the right body stroke clerk. What's next? So just to confirm, there's a high-level budget being proposed here, a kind of a strategic document as well as part of a kind of detailed work programme. If you don't want to spend the money on allocating for a new member of staff, for example, the two in the document are, if we're going to take on those open spaces, we need a couple of more rangers. But if and when we get those open spaces, council, or in this case, the Oversight Committee, can decide whether it actually wants to take those on and therefore allocate staff resources to it. If you don't want to do that, the money can be reallocated to other projects, or it can go back in the general reserve, and the general reserve can be used to subsidise next year's precept, as we've done this year. So just to confirm what I've already said, tonight is about a high-level budget decision within which there's a staff budget, an overall staff budget, and council decided last time just it wanted to review the management structure of the organisation as opposed to look at every single member of staff, because we've got, Sarah's about 45 members of staff on the books, many of which are part-time, but it's that kind of number, and that was just too much for council, and it's something that Oversight will dig down and drill down and really understand in future. So the first proposal, in addition to the work programme itself, is to look at the, it should be, to look at that management structure. It should be very, very familiar to all councillors in the room because it is unchanged from the current. There is no proposal to change that management structure. So overall, there are just a couple of things, again, reflecting the council plan. We want to put more emphasis in the coming year about town centre improvements. Nick will be delighted, hopefully.
Easy wins are done, and they are quite a few.
If you can solve the commercial waste problem as an easy win, Nick, we'll put you a civic award for you. Obviously, with more emphasis on discussions with Somerset about devolved services, and there's continued emphasis on, not surprisingly, these issues here. Town Hall needs a bit of love and care. We've talked about that in the Oversight Committee a lot, and we've allocated quite a substantial amount to improving the Town Hall this year. Needs must, it's an old building and it needs investment. It needs doing properly. And there's the point about the housing crisis. What we can do is to get try to get the right development in the right place at the right time. And lastly, I think the continued emphasis is, as we see on this agenda, on the key assets that the Town Council has a stake in. Supporting community groups remains a really important thing for this council to do. They are the backbone of what goes on and what makes the community brilliant. And then there's core functions that are easily to forget, but we should never do it, which is about those three elements there. The sort of community engagement enables us to understand what's going on in the community. Shouting about it, making sure we've got really high-level communications and promoting the events and tourism, etc., 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 and then making sure someone's there to pay the bills, which is the business support team. In summary, I think that's me. So if I suggest we pass over to Sarah, or questions, whatever you want, Annie.
Well, let's just take a question from Nick. Sorry.
I'm here for one night only. Thank you, Paul. I'm just going to ask, what are the main priorities on the work programme? Just bullet points.
I think it's reasonable to say that the main priorities are really well described in the council plan, which Fiona described earlier. And you see on the screen at the moment the second page of our higher emphasis on town centre improvements and devolution, and then the continued emphasis on addressing the climate and ecological balance, the ecological crisis, and those assets and support that you see before you. I think that's a reasonable summary of where we see, I think, the highest priorities.
Okay, thanks. We'll move on to Sarah for some detailed numbers.
Hi there, I'm Sarah, the business manager on RFO. I'm sure you've all read the papers as usual, and so you won't need me to repeat all the detail in there. So this is just a summary. The forecast work programme income and expenditure is presented in two formats again. One is the department's strategy headings with lots of narrative accompanied by the costs and expected income. And it's also presented in the accounting format of an income and expenditure by department. New or notable, new or notable items of expenditure are potentially funding the... No, I haven't actually. Sorry. Funding the Displaced Persons Hub if the Somerset Council funding ceases, developing inclusive and intergenerational play from the play strategy, major works on the town hall's structure, the envelope of the building prior to a review of a potential retrofit project, climate engagement works focusing on supporting home and business energy use and retrofitting renewable technology across the town, works and new equipment in play parks across the town and improvements to the Mary Bailey Play Park specifically, plus works to the new water meadow land at Adderwell and the community orchard. Town centre development focuses on improving the look and feel and use of the town centre. The devolution projects, as mentioned, continue in development, and budgets there cover the library and riverside ideas, public toilets or provision of, potentially the quay centre, maintenance of new open spaces and play areas, town centre CCTV, which we've taken on contributing to for the first time substantially, and the legal fees relating to the transfers or agreements with Somerset Council. All unspent funds from this year's devolution budget is carried forward to fund next year's. So the total proposed expenditure is 3.6 million, less the budgeted income, bank interest, grants, general reserves, earmark reserves, and that results in a precept required figure of 2.7 million. So the income is needed to equal expenditure to balance the budget. And in summary, the precept is 2.7, which is 9% higher than the precept last year, but because of the increase in tax base, the Band D rate is only a 6.6% increase. Calculating the Band D rate. For those of you who don't already know, the precept is divided by the tax base, and the tax base is the number of households paying the full council tax rate in Frome. So the precept of 2.7 is divided by the adjusted tax base of 9,400, and that's where you get the £295 for a Band D rate. We know 76% of Frome households are in bands A to C and therefore pay less than Band D. This is described much more prettily there. Thank you, Miles. Again, 76% of Frome households pay less in Band D. This year we are using general reserves and earmark reserves to subsidise income. So earmark reserves are for specific planned projects and expenses, and Council is also asked to approve the forecast earmark reserves ending March 25 to start the 25-26 financial year. It's currently forecast that the remaining earmark reserves allowing for budgeted use in 25-26 will be 229,000 at the 1st of April 25. This forecast is on the assumption that all the grant-funded projects currently in progress will have used their earmark reserves, such as the Lotto Green and Healthy Frome project and school streets, and that the earmarked reserves used for budgeted works in 2025 will have been moved to general reserves. General reserves are for emergencies, and our financial regulations currently state the minimum we should hold is 350,000. As we've budgeted to use 248,000 of general reserves in 25-26, it will leave a forecast general reserve at the 1st of April 25 and potentially 1st of March 26 at 342,000. This is only 8,000 under the 350,000, but it is something that Council have to agree to waive the financial regulations in order to do that. We will report again in May with the actual final year-end figures, as things can change in the last 3 months of the year. And I think if there was interest in what other towns are proposing their Band D rates go up by next year, those are some samples we've picked up this week. Bruton 70%, they were 170,000 last year, so they've doubled it. Well, They will be doubling it. Are there any questions?
Again, any questions from anybody for Sarah or on the more detailed things? It seems not. Everybody's been doing their homework. I think we were all well aware of how those numbers were stacking up well before this meeting, so hopefully that's the case. In consideration of time, I'm minded to take all 6 recommendations as a single block unless any councillors object to that.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. You could see that I was, thinking something over. I know that as councillors and as staff, we've done a lot of work to look at how we keep this precept increase as manageable as possible for our population. I know that I'm not alone in the councillor group with being concerned about what this means to our residents. And though it seemingly looks like a small increase, for some families this is going to be an issue. So I just and I was also encouraged by what you were saying, Paul, about the work that you're going to do to look at the staffing. So just wondering how much work I suppose there's opportunity for us to look further into how we can further tighten our belt, should that be a decision that we make throughout the year. Is there still potential for?
Well, further tightening the belt can go across the board, can't it? Whether it's projects or staff reviews or efficiency. So the staff review, the structure and the peer reviews are all at the very starting point of being in progress. And much of the work programme is still to come back to council for final approval. So I would say there is a flexibility and compromise available.
Great. I think that just saying that publicly and assuring the town that there is still opportunity to make some savings, should that be what's necessary in this next year. It's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. A lot of what Lisa said I was going to say, or similar to it. What concerns me is that it feels that the automatic default position is we go to ask for more money from the public. And I don't think that's right without us being convinced that we are sure that our staff are operating as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And I don't see much evidence of that. The fact that we can't have an understanding of what individual initiatives cost at the moment because of the setup within the council concerns me. And when you look around, you look at central government looking at cutting back at their in civil servants. You look at Bath. I was talking to a recent member of our staff who's moved to Bath. They're going through they're having to reapply for their jobs. I'm not saying we want to do that, but I'm not convinced that we have looked deeply enough at savings within our workforce, which is a huge amount of money, before we go out and say to the public yet again, after a big demand last year for a precept increase, that we want to go there again.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from any councillors? Tracy?
Nick, you just, at the beginning of that, you said, I can't remember exactly how you put it, you wanted to be sure that our staff were working as efficiently and well as possible. And you said something about you weren't sure there was any evidence of that. That what you were saying that we didn't have the evidence that we had investigated enough, not that we don't have the evidence that our staff are working fully. Did you feel what was missing was the investigation into it, rather than a criticism of the staff working?
Yeah, no intention to criticise the staff who work. I think they do a brilliant job. But what we don't know is what different initiatives are costing.
Right, yeah. I just thought, because I know you personally, I think I knew that's what you meant, but I felt that it wasn't really clear. So it was more about our analysis of it and investigation of it, rather than a criticism of actual work or workers.
Clumsy in my words. Thanks for correcting me, Tracy.
That's what I'm here for, mate.
Thanks. Fiona?
I just want to say a couple of things in sort of almost in response to that. I think the way I see it is that ultimately, this money, no one has a choice as to whether or not they pay council tax. They will have to. It's not our money as a town council, as councillors or as staff. It's the town's money, and we're just stewards of it. And we just have to try and make sure that it is spent as well and effectively and efficiently and for as much benefit as possible for the people of Frome. And I do think that there are, as Paul said, there are some processes that we've put in place next year to sort of do a bit of a deeper dive into some of the things. And I think that balance that I spoke about in the work program to me is really key, that we need to find some way of ensuring that we have really good governance, because we have grown a lot. And I've never worked a corporate job. £3.6 million is a lot of money, and I'm really aware of that. It makes me feel a bit sick sometimes. Like, I get that responsibility that I think we all feel. And we have to look at that, but then how do we have that really good internal accountability and oversight, and external as well with the public, but also how do we do it in a way that then doesn't strangle or suffocate that creativity and spark and responsiveness? And I think that's something that we need to look at next year, because I agree with you in a way that I don't know that we have quite got it right. I think it is something that's kind of, we've grown a lot and it's all feeling a bit awkward at the moment, and we just need to have a look at it properly, given where we're at. But to me, and it's just me, but that's a balance that we need to somehow get right, because I don't think that we, and also we don't want to stifle each other as lead councillors or anything as well. So I think there's a balance to be struck there.
All right, thank you all very much. So can I ask if somebody is ready to propose these 6 recommendations? I've got Sarah proposing, Steve seconding. I ask councillors to vote in favour. I think that's a majority.
It is. Nick, are you abstaining or objecting?
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you all very much for your work on that detailed topic. I think that now moves us on to item 5 on the agenda. So, Sarah, can I ask you to make your opening statement and then leave us in accordance with the rules?
I've got no slides and I've only got 2 numbers. I'm Sarah Butler, I'm a councillor and also a trustee of our beloved Cheese and Grain. And some of you probably know that we are looking at currently expanding the building. The context to this is that we have this fantastic Bert Jansch studio, which is attracting talent from all over the world and bringing in lots of news and hype, and it's really great stuff. But we really do, as a venue, need to and want to expand that. It's a studio, it's a very technical studio. Any of my cheesy colleagues over there, please correct me if I say anything stupid. But I think it needs an engineer, which makes it quite expensive. And so part of the idea behind expanding and creating a new studio is to make that more accessible to the local community, to young bands, young people who want to learn more about the technical side of music production, engineering, marketing, some of the creative stuff that comes with running a studio and learning those skills. Frome is really, partly because of the Cheese and Grain, is really becoming a hotspot of attraction for the music industry in the Southwest. Got a really good reputation. The Bert Jansch studio engineers are in demand in New York, of all places, apparently because we have the best sound engineers in the Southwest, down in the country, and in the Southwest in particular. So the context behind this is looking at achieving funding to expand the Cheese and Grain on the side of the building between that and the Canoe Club. There's been recent talk of some government levelling up money. There's some uncertainty about whether we're going to get the levelling up money that we applied for. But with that in mind, we are also applying now for an Arts Council grant of £1.6 million. Part of the issue around this is the length of lease on the Cheese and Grain building, which is currently only at 15 years. Any big funders are going to want a much longer lease than that to start thinking about lending that kind of money. Somerset Council have, in principle, agreed to extend the lease by 30 years, which factors in the time it may take to get funding through, start building, planning permission and building plans and all of that kind of thing. So a 30-year lease would give us a little bit more leeway and a little bit more flexibility in terms of putting all those plans together. The current lease is only 15 years. Assuming that Somerset are okay with that, they'll be giving us an extension to a 30-year lease, which will then enable us to be in a better position to secure any funding that we apply for. Another aspect is the planning consent. We, as Frome Town Council, are going to put in the planning application, either in partnership with or on behalf of the cheese and grain. That's mainly to do with costs and VAT costs. Am I right in saying that, Peter? It makes more sense for us to put in the planning application.
Also, being the landlord, we have the lease till 2096. It makes sense for that planning application to be submitted by Frome Town Council.
Okay, so that's where we are with that. I'm pretty sure that the lease can be finalised without too many challenges from Somerset, and it just remains to put in the planning application for the building itself, and all systems go. Nick.
Sorry, just a point of control there, because of Sarah's interest in this, she's not permitted to enter into a debate. So,
well, I don't know who's going to answer the question then.
Cheese and grain colleagues behind me.
Okay.
In fact, Peter Wheelhouse is going to present the recommendation. So once Sarah has left the room, I'll come to you for the question, if that's okay. Sorry.
That was it for me, really. I just wanted to give you an overview of the context behind the... Give me a minute. Context behind what the application is about, why the building extension is kind of vital to the cheese and grain, and why it would be a huge asset to what is already one of the jewels in the town's crown. So there's going to be a couple of questions for you to vote on, and I'm going out for a break. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Peter, can you... I don't know if Sarah's left you anything to say, but...
Just going to quickly show you the sketch that's been prepared by the architect that's working with the cheese and grain for what the cheese and grain is referring to as event tech, which is a combination of a new training centre to support the music industry, but also an expansion of the apprenticeship activity at the cheese and grain generally, and also further storage and logistical space to support the overall operation of the cheese and grain. So the proposal is that within that building, the new building that you see there in the sketch, that these activities will take place. Just to pick up on a point that Sarah made, although in principle Somerset Council is happy for the sublease that we grant to the cheese and grain to be extended, it is important for us to take a decision about the term of that sublease, and that is one of the recommendations that you have before you. The other element to mention is that there is some legal work to be completed with Somerset Council as the overall landlord. Part of that is to marginally extend the boundary of the demise, the area that is leased, to enable that building to be completed. We're talking very marginal, a matter of a couple of metres into the car park, but Somerset are in principle happy with that, but we need to finalise that with Somerset Council before the project can proceed. So I think really that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction, and obviously we'll take any questions.
Nick, I think you've certainly got one.
Peter, you're obviously the right man to ask for this. Could we not make this the 58th parcel of land that we get back from Somerset? Get back from Somerset. Why not? I mean, we've put the money and the investment into that place over the years. I think we deserve it. It wouldn't be the success that it is today if it hadn't been for Frome Town Council. And I think it's the least Somerset can do is to give it to us and not be the landlord. Make us the landlord. We should own that building.
Well, that's a matter for our councillors to consider. I think what we have heard from the Cheese and Grain is that an extension to the sublease should unlock the funding that's necessary for this project. But it's in the gift of our councillor body to decide whether they want to push for the freehold of both the Cheese and Grain and the land on which this new extension will be put.
Yeah, I think Philip wanted to come in on that.
Thank you. This is not really a comment on the planning application, but I'd just like to congratulate Steve and his team and everybody else that's been involved in this for providing absolutely superb resources and superb venue. My comment really is that we now have at Frome College a music department that actually is probably the best in Somerset, in that they have reintroduced A-level music and associated technologies with that, and that I hope that this will enable more young people in Frome within the school system to actually take part and go on to become those world-leading, sound recordists, technicians, etc., that Sarah was talking about. So I think it's very, very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you just put the recommendations up, please, Peter? Fiona.
Philip actually said a lot of what I was about to say, so I won't say that. But I just on Nick, on your point, I seem to remember that we have, and obviously we'll continue having discussions about the freehold of the Cheese and Grain. But I seem to remember there's also a strategic point about actually it being quite beneficial that Somerset Council is the freeholder, because they can also apply directly for government funding, and it gives us more and it keeps them involved in it, and it gives them more opportunity, it gives us more options generally. So I think there's also, it's not necessarily exactly what it seems, but it will be discussed. And what Philip said.
I wonder if I could just add to that and say that the application for levelling up funding was submitted and could only be submitted by Somerset Council under the rules that the government set. And there is a possibility, even though we have lobbied hard for a change in the rules to enable town and parish councils to apply directly to the government. And in fact, a recent report that came out of the House of Lords that we influenced has recommended that happens. The government have yet to take a decision around whether we can apply directly. So in the short term, to a certain extent, we may be dependent on Somerset Council as a principal authority to actually apply for the kind of funding which may be available. In other cases, it may be possible for the Cheese and Grain to apply directly or with Frome Town Council. Obviously, we will take with them every opportunity we can possibly take to try and secure the capital funding for this project.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So can I ask somebody to propose that we accept the 4 recommendations on the report? I've got Nick Dove proposing, Tracy seconding. Obviously, Sarah isn't here to vote.
That's unanimous.
Yeah. Can I invite Sarah to join us again? And can I invite Peter to come back to the rostrum for a couple of verbal updates? The first is on Badgers Hill.
So this will be very brief. You'll be pleased to hear that work is progressing well on the new changing rooms at Badgers Hill. The progress has been a little slower than expected due to the ground conditions. It meant that deeper foundations needed to be installed. But we expect now, and this was the latest report from the architect, that the work will be substantially completed by mid-March, which is well within the deadline set by the funders for it. Where we're actually at is that foundations, damp-proof course and drainage are in place, and the timber superstructure is starting this week. Also, the contract to install new plumbing and heating within the clubhouse and the new clubhouse roof are due to start imminently. One other point to mention about Badgers Hill is that with the new CBS board settling in, attention is now being turned to how the clubhouse can be used more efficiently and effectively. And in fact, the board is meeting this week to consider ways in which the venue can be better promoted and managed. So obviously we'll keep you updated on that as that work proceeds. That's all I wanted to say.
That's good to know. Thank you, Peter. And then the next sort of standing item on the agenda is the update on the devolution project.
Some of what I was going to say has already been mentioned, but just to recap, as Fiona mentioned earlier, in anticipation of agreeing a deal with Somerset, attention is now being paid to how the assets and services that we expect to take on will be used and how those things will be operated and managed. We are beginning to engage with lead councillors on each of those specific assets and services, but there is more to come in the weeks ahead, and we will keep the whole councillor body informed and involved about that. Negotiations are continuing and they are positive to date, but we still await a full response to our comprehensive set of proposals from Somerset. And we're pushing for that as soon as possible through the lead officer at Somerset Council, Sarah Skirton. So I'll keep you informed about that.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. And then the final item on the agenda, over to Laura to just briefly talk us through the calendar of meetings.
Yes, it's all in front of you. Hopefully those dates work for everyone, and I've obviously, as always, tried extremely hard to avoid holidays and things like that, but it is tricky. The only other thing we wanted to bring your attention to was that currently the legal side of things still stand that councillors can only vote when they're physically in the room. So if you attend online, unfortunately, it's technically as though you haven't attended the meeting and you need to give your apologies.
Ruling at the moment.
It is, but the good news is they are looking into it, so things may change, and obviously we'll keep you updated.
Okay, thank you. So can I ask somebody to propose that we approve the calendar of meetings? I've got Anita proposing, Philip seconding, and it looks like Tracy's out of the room at the moment, but everybody else, majority. Yeah. Okay, that's got us through the agenda as planned. Thank you for the timings on that. Really appreciate how quickly we've been able to move through things.
Are we not getting an update on the devolution?
That was it.
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
Did you blink?
I wasn't fully paid attention.
Okay. So next meeting, 7 p.m. here on Wednesday, the 12th of February. And I would just like to comment how great it is to see several members of the public joining us for these meetings. It's great to see that we're not alone. And thank you all.